aside from his, of course, great importance as an actor and the influence he had on so many generations, subsequent generations of actors, Marlon was really, beyond that part of him, one of the few geniuses I've ever met. And by that I mean the way he thought. You could have the most extraordinary conversations, or I mean, most of it would be listening to him talking about termites, or talking about what it might have been like for the Chinese who first came to the United States to build the railroads. He had a very unique mind, and his mind could get lost in a subject, and where he would just talk about it and go on. It was difficult working with him as an actor because, like anyone, he, of course, often was stalling before we all had to get to work. And when he first showed up for Apocalypse Now, we were in a houseboat trailer, kind of, where we were supposed to talk a little bit and then go shoot. But he would start talking about the most fascinating stuff, and before I know it, half the day was gone. I only had him for 3 weeks. To shoot. To shoot, $1 million a week. I had him for 3 weeks. And he would start talking about these interesting subject, and it would go on, and then they'd knock on the door. What should we do? Should we break for lunch? And I said, well, yeah, break for lunch. And then 3 hours later, they would knock on the door. Well, what should we do? Should we send everyone home? And I said, yes, send everyone home. Because to listen to him talk about interesting subject matter was just fascinating. And indeed, when he made the film Mutiny on the Bounty, he fell in love with Polynesia and with a wife that I think he married her, and he bought in Polynesia an atoll. That's right. It's not really an island. It's a system of islands called Titaroa.
Yes.
And he always talked about, and he loved this. For a while he even had a little shack there, and he would live on it and like a native and what have you. And he always had the dream of making Titaroa into some sort of very advanced ecology, which they did. He did it in partnership, I think, with a guy named Williams, was that?
Yes.
And apparently it's very successful, not only for the visitors. I understand President Obama went there to
work on his memoirs.
But also that he has scientists studying the various possible things to study in Polynesia, and it's a model of what we're talking about, which is where tourism doesn't erode and destroy what the people have come to see, but in some way helps sustain it. So that is an example of I have not been there myself, although only recently I learned more about it. I would love to go to Polynesia. I would love to see it. But indeed, when British Honduras became Belize in 1981, it did so under the very enlightened guidance of George Price, who was the first prime minister, and his associates. And it was founded as an preserve. The entire country was very careful to preserve mangroves, to preserve species, to preserve all that was natural in Belize. And in fact, at that time, some of you may remember there was an American industrialist. I think his name was Ludwig. Do you remember the episode of Ludwig?
Yes.
Who had a ton of money and wanted to build a big, almost a city in some primitive setting to do logging or stuff. And ultimately, he went to Belize and offered George Price and his associates this vast amount of money to buy a chunk of what was known as the Mountain Pine Ridge in Belize, and they turned him down because what he was doing would have destroyed what was natural and beautiful. And instead, he went Mr. Ludwig went to Brazil.
That's right.
And bought a big chunk of the Amazon forest. And I don't know what was the outcome of that project, but I know it wasn't good for Brazil. It wasn't good for the Amazon forest, which means it wasn't good for humanity. And ultimately, of course, as forests do, it's swallowed up, whatever. The thing about travel is assuming we're not going to other worlds right away, and I don't want to go anywhere that doesn't have trees. So all kids are saying, "Oh, we're going to go to Mars." Well, you can go to Mars. There are no trees on Mars. I don't want to go to Mars. Trees are too wonderful to have to go anywhere where they are not. But at any rate, the fact that we are going to go through, people were traveling to France and England in the 19th century, in the 18th century, in the 15th century. But each time we travel with a different mindset. So in a sense, it's a different journey. So what I hope for the future of my grandchildren, that yes, indeed, they go to this beautiful earth. Because let's face it, all beauty of art, all beauty and everything, all comes from this planet. The beauty of art, of the artists who have done such beautiful things, all is inspired from what's here. This planet is so varied and so full of variation and beauty that what I would wish is that the next generation that transverses the deserts and the seas does it with their mind in a slightly more advanced place. So in a sense, it's a totally new journey. But isn't that the key to tourism even now? If you can invite your guests to come to where you are welcoming them, granted you could give them a wonderful experience, your staff could be just perfectly tuned, your ideas, your details, the amenities you give. Oh, forget the double sink, because no one brushes their teeth in the bathroom with the sink here and the sink there, and there's no place to put your stuff on the sink anymore. But instead of that, better to have the master bedroom have 2 bathrooms. That's my suggestion. But what I'm saying, aside from those little amenities, it all started with the chocolate bar that someone put on the pillow. My feeling is that you're inviting people to see this world with a different mental point of view. And by doing that, it's a whole new trip. And so that's what I wish for my grandchildren, that they see people and places and beauty and culture with more interest in what was really there. So it's really a mental trip. It's not a lot like a movie when you think about it. I mean, all the movies that are made, pretty much you can look and say, well, this movie's really like that movie, this movie's like... What's different? It's all the details and the mental attitude that the director gives you. So as they come to your places to visit, you're going to give them a different way of thinking. Ecotourism was that. Trying to tour with the extraordinary food opportunities that there are. It's always a new mental adjustment. So that's where you get, the earth is only so big, but it becomes infinitely big when you change how you look at it.